Good afternoon. Let's get back to actually doing work. I think today I'm actually going to get started on actually making the water material. I know I've been gathering information and doing a whole bunch of other random trash, but I think I kind of want to get started on seeing if we can get some of this water surface stuff actually working properly, or started. So I'm going to have to figure out how I even want this material stuff to work. And sadly, we're going to get rid of all the ducks. They're gone. So let's see here. This is going to be the material I'll be messing with. Alright, so what do we even have? So what are some elements that we're going to want? I think I have a list of things that I want. Because we don't have ripples yet for like dynamic ripples and like the dynamic stuff, but we have the static stuff, so we should be able to make it so all that works and then add the dynamic stuff after we get the basics going on. So what are some things that we need to add here? So we need water. So what things are we going to have? We're not going to use tessellation or vertex deformation. So I'm going to try to break down how exactly we're going to make this water work. So what are some things we want to show? In fact, I should be pulling up my concept art. So this is the sort of water, or at least one type of it. We've got these two things. So what we're going to want is what sort of things do we want to show kind of happening here? So this is just the water surface is what we're looking at. So things that we need, we're going to need a planar reflection. That's pretty obvious. So we're going to need a reflection. There's a question of, do we want this to be a translucent or a masked surface? I don't think so. I think we're just going to have reflective water. You can't see through it, so it's going to be opaque. Let's see, so we need an overall color. It needs to be lit. So we do need to show motion. So we need to show motion of water. We're going to need to show ripples. Some of the things, like with this piece, we've got these like shore standing kind of wave sorts of things. So you kind of need like a shore outline. And kind of have this, you know, we've got waves and stuff like that kind of coming off on some of these. So we're going to need to have some sort of, noise sorts of stuff going on. So how are we going to accomplish this? Well, we need a watercolor. It's kind of a base color. We want a reflection amount. Like the planar reflection, all that stuff is not a problem. So how do we do motion of water? How will we show that the water is traveling in a certain direction? I mean, we could have just like some sort of noise texture. So we could have like a noise texture which pans based on a time. And I'm not really sure how this would look like. And like we could drag a noise texture, and like how does that actually combine? Does the noise texture coupled with a color, perhaps? Because if we just drag like some texture along, and like we're not a river or something, we're actually like this more dynamic curved blah stuff. So I mean, we can't just like drag a texture straight down like we did with a waterfall or something like that, because the motion's going to be completely arbitrary. Like the motion is around the corner here and all this stuff, so just having a panning texture or something isn't going to work. We're going to need, we can't like couple a texture together. It's going to get stretched and screwed up and everything else, so we're going to probably have to have a color or something for the actual motion. So what about shore ripples? I think it was standing. So shore ripples, we have like kind of a shore ripple color, and then we have like a noise texture. And we want to move that texture. How do we actually move that? And so like fade in based on shore distance, perhaps. Well, why don't we just get started with something, right? Like, so let's just get this working. So the blend mode, material is a surface. It's going to be opaque. No tessellation. So let's start looking at this. So this is all like debugging stuff here. Oh god, that's right, we got a whole bunch of stuff that we can do. So we're not going to be using the opacity. Normals. Alright, yeah, so we need normals. Should the normals create the ripples? We're not going to be using that, so we might use normals. We might use base color. We're not. We might use. Anyway, let's parameterize some of these things. Let's use the roughness as a value that can be passed in. Alright, so we got our base color. I'm gonna try to organize some of this a little bit. So like, I can have a node here that can kind of be controlled. So I can kind of just maybe connect this off to here, and then base color can just kind of slice in here. So let's see, we got the watercolor. And then we're going to want like normals. We're going to want the same thing here, where it's test weight, and we'll have the normal come in here. And when we do the test weight stuff, we will slot this in. Alright, so let's hook up the, let's actually just get this thing rolling. So this is our material. Yes, it's very dark. Planar reflection. Alright. It's just black. It's just not doing anything, is it? Alright, so we do have watercolor. That is hooked up. So let's see if we get a roughness going on here. We're going to need a roughness slider. Alright, so let's open up this blueprint so we can actually start messing with it. Let's see, we're going to want watercolor. Let's run a new variable here, which is going to be roughness. This will be a float. This will be from 0 to 1. Default value of 1. And then we need to set our shader parameters for this thing. Where is it? Alright, I need to water material instance. We're going to set scalar parameter value. The parameter value's name is roughness. And we're going to set it to our roughness. Roughness is going to be public. Roughness of the water. Cool. So what is RGB? So I need a specific, I guess a color here. I need to add it to the normals. So we'll do test weight. We basically need to get the normals if like we're in debug mode. The normals should be just, you know, regular old normals. So what is a regular old normal? It's we're going to multiply this regular old normal by a thing. We'll add it into here. So what we're going to want to do is have a regular, so it should be like a color or like a constant 3 vector. I'll just have 1 come off of here. Otherwise, we'll have the same thing over here. So we'll create water normals. And I'm kind of just hooking this up to kind of hopefully use this. The idea is that we can have some debugging flags on this water surface. So inside of our material, so we'll kind of use these nodes as our actual nodes, kind of like this, but then we have like a debug version of it. I don't know. There's probably a better way to set this up, but I don't know it. So let's take a look. We've got our roughness here. Let's see what we can do with this. Now, why are we not seeing our reflections? Now we're seeing reflections. And this planar reflection, where is it? I think there's a preview. There's a preview plane. Yeah, show preview. There. Here we are. Just our watercolor is a little bit too shiny. We just make it white. What does that look like? This, the water is not looking like I have to get rid of a bunch of debugging stuff that I have in here that's probably screwing all this up. So let's see, we've got this test weight, which is being multiplied. So this should be a 0, so our emissive color should be 0. We just remove that emissive color entirely. We just look at, just looks like this. So what happens if this is black? And it's just a straight reflection. And it's not doing the planar reflection. Wondering why this planar reflection is not getting applied. Guess it's got to be right on there. Alright, there it goes. So it's right on there. It's just real touchy. Oh, hello Lucas. No, that's the planar reflection. The full field stuff is still there. It's just doing other stuff. Alright, so planar reflection is right there. And let's see. Can we mess with this a little bit? Interesting. What is going on over here? When we look at this water, it's getting cut off. Like we've got stuff over here. The shiny water. Yeah, the Unreal does some pretty good stuff with water. I need to turn off the visibility on some of these things. I'm going to add a little visibility thing on here, just a new variable, which will be show inputs and outputs. What are the red and green pills for? They're debugging things to show you where the inputs and outputs for the water are. So this is kind of a, like when you're looking at this stuff, the red is an output for water and the green is an input for the water, and then we have these arrows to show you kind of the direction the water would be flowing. So, you know, we could just drag these around and it'll change how the water gets, how the water flows in the water without having to like go mess with the water. So I can just like put down a waterfall and it'll just automatically have the right inputs and outputs. category for this should be debugging. And what we want to do here is we want to go to our construction script and we want to set the visibility. On this thing. And we want to set it to this show inputs and outputs variable, and that way hopefully you can just like click on something and then click a little button to look at its debugging stuff, and that way it all works. Amazing. Alright, well, cheap thrills. Alright, so we'll grab the inputs and outputs, and this will be true, and hopefully this will do what we want it to. So if I go here and do this sort of thing, I should be able to click on a waterfall. And then it's not perfect, but I mean, that's really what we want, so I'm okay with that. Alright, when we hit play, now this weird thing is happening here. I need to figure out why. It's like, why isn't this rendering all the way down? Because it's too damn tall. Or it's too short. So let's scale it. Same thing with this one. This one isn't tall enough. Alright, so we've got our shiny water. Wow, that looks like all sorts of craziness over there. It does not like that low angle of sun. Alright, is there anything else we can do with the planar reflection? So we have a roughness value, we've got to fade out everything. Looks like we don't really have too much that we can play with the planar reflection. Well, it looks like it's not freaking out anymore over there. So whatever I just changed is what we wanted. Alright, so we should be able to like change the roughness. So if we have, like 0.25 roughness or whatever, then we have a little bit of shininess, a little bit of reflection. So what do we want to do first with this thing? I think we want to take this roughness to 0. So I've got my list of things. I really want to get some motion. So I guess it's like we need a noise texture, and then we need a velocity. We'll take the velocity and direction and location and we'll see what we can do with it. We'll see what kind of craziness we can accomplish with this. So it's going to be, I think, the base color, and we're going to need like a water speed for this thing, like a maximum speed and all that. So let's see. We need some textures. I need some textures in here. So we have a texture sample, and we should have an input texture. So we're going to want our, what textures we got? Alright, so we have got our distance texture. Come on, keyboard. So we have our distance texture. We're going to have our flow field texture. We're going to have our height map texture. And we have particles for a texture, but I don't think we're going to need that. What? Who knows? Like, let's just pass it in there and see if we could do something with it. Okay, so we're going to have all these different textures, and we're going to pass stuff into them. So the first thing we want to do is our flow field texture. And we are just using TextCorg 0 for looking this thing up. It's already in world space. I mean, it's not in world space. It's in texture space, so we don't have to do anything. The vectors are all in world space, not texture space. Or are the vectors in texture space? I think they're in texture space. Crap! I need to look at that. Let it run down the drain or something? Yes, that is the plan. Alright, Lucas, you have a good one. Well, I'm gonna pretend it's something else. Alright, so the alpha channel of this is going to be our magnitude, it's going to go from 0 to 1 with a speed and stuff like that. So what we could do is kind of at least just throw a noise texture on there and do something with it. Let's have a separate watercolor here. Let's have this be water, rough watercolor, and let's make it, you know, like a brighter version of this. So what do we want to do? We want to blend between these things? So I guess we can kind of linearly interpolate between them real quick and just see how that looks. And I think we'll need a rough water color. Oh yeah, we need to set our textures. Alright, so we need to edit this blueprint. So let's add stuff. Let's add a rough water color. And you can copy colors as far as I know. Yeah. Alright, so we'll save that, and we need to set all of our shader values here. So we're going to grab height map texture, distance texture, flow field texture, and actual flow field texture. Alright, so we need the water instance material, and we're going to set texture parameter values. So I need the flow field texture. So we'll hook all these up. Flow field texture, the distance texture, height map texture, and the particle texture. And I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just experimenting with all this, so I'm hoping I can kind of slowly construct stuff as I roam along here. So there's no, like, I don't do anything off stream in terms of like planning really for what I'm doing on stream, so I'm just kind of making it up. So I have no idea if this is going to actually come into making good looking water or not. In fact, I've never really made any water except for, you know, the basic crappy pond stuff we've been working on, which is pretty bad. You know, there's nothing special about it. So this will be the first time we've actually, hopefully, get something that doesn't look like complete trash. Alright, so we set all of our textures. And I think we need to set our other color values. So we see our rough water color. And sometimes it's easier to just blueprint this stuff out so you can kind of play with it while you're actually looking at the model in the real world, in the, well, the real quote-unquote fake world, than it is to mess around with kind of the material viewer. Sometimes the material viewer just doesn't give you a very good idea, especially if you got all sorts of random data like we do. Alright, so if we have our rough watercolor as red, well, let's see. I can no longer see my debugging stuff. That's unfortunate. Let's get that debug stuff working again. Oh yeah, we didn't hook it up. It's unhooked up. Alright, so it should be good. We should just be able to slot it into the emissive color. Alright, so if we debug the alpha, it should be 1 around there, and then, you know, gray around there. So why are we not seeing anything? Alright, well, let's start plugging in some basic texture stuff here. So this is the flow field texture. Let's just set up some defaults here. See, this is more what I'm expecting to see. And if I'm going to save these things out and use them as test objects, I need to like actually use them as real test objects. So what that means is that I need to take copies of these things and throw them somewhere. So water, test saves, yeah, we'll throw them in there. Actually, let's get rid of at least this. So we need these 4 objects. So let's go ahead and set these up inside of our material. So our distance is going to be this thing. Height map is going to be this. And our particles are going to be this. Our height map is this. Alright, that's better. So let's save that. So we would expect to see, you know, something like this going on. But in the game I see nothing. So I mean, we're something is not right here. Do we have anything over here with tiling or... Okay, well, I messed with that a little bit, and this is what it looks like. So I'm passing the wrong texture in the blueprint. So this would be flow field texture is being set to particles. Should call this particle texture. Yeah, I had them all backwards. It's because I hijacked the flow field texture originally to debug the particles. All right, so that's looking correct over on the right. Well, it's not anymore. Because I'm seeing I don't like how these windows work. Seeing this in game. But when I plug in the other thing, it doesn't look right. Is the alpha channel getting lost somehow? I mean, if the alpha channel was getting lost, then something else would be going on here. It's like this color isn't here. Let's get a noise texture. I just want to see something on here. Yeah, I'm not seeing any differences though. Why is the material not updating? Am I doing something wrong? Is it not lit or something? Is that why we're not? No. It's just a basic color. Why isn't it showing up? Maybe it is. Are we setting the other color properly? Yeah, see, this is the sort of crap that I'm not doing right. I set the rough watercolor to the same thing as the watercolor. So no wonder it would look all weird. So I got that going on now. Alright, so if we want to show motion on this thing, we're going to want to look up this thing, and then we're going to like take this alpha value, multiply it by some sort of noise, and then we're going to want to pan the noise based on a vector, which would be the motion in texture space. This should be X and Y. So we're gonna need a float 2. So we're gonna have like time. And then we'll have like a constant here for like, this will be water speed or something. And we'll just have it be default of 1 or something. Alright, so if we take our time, we multiply it by our water speed, and we multiply that by our alpha, which is our kind of how fast the water is going at our current location. And then we're going to add, we're going to make a float 2 out of our x and our y. So that's going to be our direction. That's our speed, so we need to multiply this together. And that's going to be our texture coordinate into our noise. And that is going to be our alpha. No, we need to multiply this alpha by this value, and then that will become it. Well, we have to actually make this into, God, we have to like unpack this value. So it goes from 0 to 1, and what we want is alright.